we have invited the president of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Eric Ruto, to come and let's talk from the sector of business. And the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry talks to, small businesses to large businesses, all of them coming together. He'll tell us about their membership and all. And every year they look at what's happening in the business environment. We'll look at that. It's called the barometer. And he'll also tell us now, this is why then the businesses would like this to be the focus areas for the government. So let's talk about the chamber, and then we'll talk about the barometer. So who is the National Chamber of Commerce and Industry?
The Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry is the longest and the largest voice of the private sector. We do represent the interests of the private sector for the last 60 years. As currently constituted is that we are in each and every corner of this country. We have 47 chapters that is in each and every county, where we have membership across all the 47 chapters. So therefore, we are able to know the pulse of the economy through our membership, which consists of over 50,000 registered companies, and another one through business associations, around 2 million micro businesses. So that is the Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We look at two things when we are representing the interest of our members. One is issues of policy and advocacy. What is the business environment? What is the cost of doing business? Then after we sort out that is that we now provide opportunities, issues about networking, market linkages, business intelligence information, both locally as a country, within the region, that is Africa, and even outside. We have related to 177 chapters globally. And I'm very happy with the subject that you've talked about, that is fixing the nation. So I would be able to briefly tell you how Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry has been and is currently fixing the nation. Right. Thank you.
You conduct regular surveys amongst your members just to, gauge how they're doing, their sense in terms of doing business, the ease of doing business, their health of doing business, their concerns and areas that they're doing well and where they want things to improve. And you released the 2025 barometer, which has several aspects, and you pick one and let's talk about.
Right, and we take a look at it, right? The employment outlook. I worry about our unemployment numbers, especially among young people, but 60% of surveyed businesses do not anticipate to expand their workforce in 2025. Of course, that marks quite a notable shift from previous years, maybe where there was a bit more positivity as far as expanding workforces. And of course, this can be attributed to a lot of things, but I know Dr. Ruto will speak to that. First of all, 60% of businesses do not anticipate to expand their workforce in 2025.
Okay.
What does that number mean? What does that statement mean?
Thank you very much. And maybe before I go there, is that a little bit about fixing the nation.
Yes.
I think if we actually want to fix our nation, before we come to the issues of employment, which is a big crisis currently, is that you have to love your country. You have to love yourself. And how do you do it? As a media and the people watching us, I want you to go to our social media handles at Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Just go to our website, you'll get all our social media handles. See what Kenya National Chamber has done for the last 1 month. As we talk right now, because we love the nation, because we love our country, I have sent currently 11 business people, SMEs, to Zambia to market Kenyan products. And if you check, you watch the video, they are getting opportunities there. That is how to fix the nation.
Right.
In a big way, in a small way.
I like
but as we come back to the issue of the majority of the businesses are not expecting to add
to their workforce.
First of all, for the last 1 week, I've been under a lot of pressure and stress. Why? Because my phone that I bought here is a Samsung. The weight of this phone has increased 5,700 times. The weight. So carrying this phone is giving me a lot of pressure and stress. Why? Myself, I'm an employer, and for the first time, when I advertised to employ 32 young Kenyans, within a period of 7 days, I received 5,700 applicants, and I'm only looking for 32.
32
All
positions.
of them are super qualified, super qualified. Therefore, it speaks into our business barometer. What I have as personal experience myself,
Right.
which is I'm under stress and I'm under pressure. You're getting 5,700
Applications.
for only 32 positions.
Right.
Within a period of 1 week. So it speaks into our business barometer here, and we did poll 1,981 businesses across the country. And from this is, I want you to interpret it in terms of context. We usually release business barometer quarterly. So I want to compare in terms of what was the expectation of businesses in quarter 3 of 2024. That was between July 1st and September. And then the last quarter that was starting October to December, and currently now the quarter that we're going to complete this month.
Right.
So in quarter 3, that is last year, 25% of the businesses did not expect to hire new.
In quarter 3.
In quarter 3.
Yeah.
In quarter 4, it is 47%. In quarter 1 of 2025, it's gone to 60%.
Just grows up by 60%.
So what is happening?
This is a huge jump.
This is a surety. And I want to give you the proper statistics.
Hold
now.
on.
If you look at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics,
let's
before we go there,
contextualize the number.
We sit
Yes.
in that 25
Because
to 47.
This is a very huge number.
Yes.
When we say, and this is it on the screen, huh?
Yes.
We're saying quarter 3, 2024,
Yes.
25% did not expect to grow their numbers.
Yes.
Right.
That jumps to 47%
Yes.
In quarter 4.
in quarter 4.
Yes.
That jumps to 60% in quarter 1.
Yes.
This is a very huge jump. It's
Yes.
more than double
Yes.
from just halfway last year
Yes.
to the beginning of this year.
Yes.
I mean, explain then. What are they saying?
Yes. So the businesses are saying the business environment is not healthy. The cost of doing business is not healthy. Of course, we know there was a little bit of economic recession in 2024, and it can be predicted by the pressures that we had and the issue of solving of the finance bill of 2024-2025, and you saw what happened. So looking at those statistics is that in the formal sector, in terms of statistics, is that there was growth of 4%, in the informal sector 4.5%, and I want to put that in perspective. So that is why you are seeing these statistics. As per the statistics of government,
Right.
4% in the formal sector. And how many people do we employ in the formal sector? Around 3.2, 3.3 million. Government is 30% of that, private sector. Ourselves is another 70%. There was only a growth of paltry 4%, which is not commensurate with the growth of the economy. It was estimated that we grew by around 4.6%, 5.6%.
Yeah.
So it means the growth of the economy is not commensurate with the growth of job opportunities in Kenya. So therefore, we went further to see why are businesses not expecting to hire. So we had 3 indicators of what is the business environment. So quite a number of things that were there. Is the first that was appearing is that cost of credit and access to credit. So 2 things. That is 1. 2. And appearing very closely was the issue about high taxation and unpredictable government policy. And finally, of course, lack of market, which means it presents a little bit about the purchasing power of Kenyans and the cost of living. So that explained a little bit of why businesses are not expecting to hire. And of course, if you go to the industry, which I'll be able to tell you, we did some polling. What is happening in our manufacturing sector? Why do we have over 50% of our manufacturing capacity laying idle?
Right.
And the goods that we are importing, we have cheap imports. And cheap doesn't mean it's of low quality or
Right.
of similar quality, but Kenya is not competitive. And we went further to look at why are we not competitive. So if you look at our business barometer, which you can find it online, I know you've just given me 1 hour how to fix the nation. Those are some of the things. But of course, there's a bigger opportunity if we address those matters. And I would say we can be able to turn around so that these young people who, if you look at the last 10 years, and I started by saying is that to fix the nation, we have to love our country.
Right.
And for us to be able to fix the nation, to love our country, the media, you have to be the leader. And I really appreciate this topic that you've started of fixing the nation.
Thank you.
Yes.
I want to juxtapose 2 things.
Yes.
60% of surveyed businesses don't anticipate expanding their workforce.
Yes.
We've gone through the why. right? And we've
Yes.
contextualized it.
Yes.
However, 65% of respondents remain optimistic for revenue growth in 2025. Those two.
Yes. Okay. I would want to a little bit compare.
Yes.
If you are in an economy that is growing, what do you expect?
Revenue growth.
100% growth of business.
Business.
And how do we measure our economic growth? It's about turnover. So when we are getting that 65% only of businesses are not expecting to grow their revenue, so it means this economy that you're saying is growing at 5.6%, meaning that we are leaving approximately 1/3 of businesses not growing, and even they are contracting.
A third,
So,
yes.
yes. So what that statement means is that our expectation of our economic growth is not happening across board. So that is what is happening. But maybe on that statistic is that you have to look at those ones who do not expect their revenue to grow. You getting?
The 1/3, yeah.
Yeah, no, those ones who are not expecting to grow. So what's happening is from quarter 3 of 2024, quarter 4 of 2024, and quarter 5 is that those ones who are not expecting to grow their revenue is increasing. So it means we are talking about the macroeconomics, about our economic growth in terms of GDP, but more businesses are seeing that they are not expecting to grow the economy.
Right.
Here, actually, we would expect that 100%, or maybe 99% of businesses will
Are
be growing.
expecting to
But from another way, I would see is that you see the businesses that we polled, and it's very important that it was a representative sample of the current business environment in terms of the size of business.
Yeah.
That 75%, approximately 3/3, were the small businesses across the country.
And not
So,
small.
Yes. So if you look at our economy, is a little bit there's a little bit I would say the service sector is a little bit more overrepresented in our economy, the service sector. So therefore, if you're talking about the financial sector, the banks, the ICT, the telecoms, those are the businesses that are growing. But those are only facilitators of the economy. If you look at the core, that is agriculture, manufacturing, they are contracting. So therefore, it's a serious problem, because what will happen is, with the time, that curve of growth will go down, especially now the service industry, which is serving the core economy of the country, will also contract. Thank you.
Cost of primary input, and this is like raw materials, is also expected to grow, to increase by all these businesses that you've sampled. And they're saying the reasons for this: high taxes, levies, and unfavorable government policies, 44%. Poor macroeconomic conditions, that is inflation, 33%. Supply chain instability, 13.7%. Climate change and weather patterns, 6.6%, and so on. Now, they say raw materials will be expensive because of new taxes on imported goods. These are respondent in Kisumu County who said that. And another one in Taita Taveta said, uncertainty of government policy on the way of exporting macadamia nuts, if in processed form or unprocessed, a respondent in Taita Taveta County. And we talked about, this issue that's happening in the macadamia nuts industry, where those processed and non-processed, and the government just waiving so that we can allow non-processed macadamia nuts to get out of the country, unlike before where there was a proper ban on that. And this is the Taita Taveta respondent saying, this is going to affect me because of this uncertainty. But it brings us into the conversation that we're having, which is just looking at budget and budget policy and government in terms of its financial outlook. The biggest expectation here that my costs are going to increase is taxes, levies, and favorable government policies. Did you go further to ask them, what exactly do you mean? What's your experience in this year?
Yes, we went further, but maybe a little bit on the issue of the cost of inputs, and you've talked about the macadamia issue. I have really followed the macadamia issue from the farmer to the processor to the market. And I would say is that I know government would want to ban export of unprocessed macadamia. It's good news for Kenya. And it's going to create employment.
Right.
But ask yourself, in the value chain of macadamia, when I followed it to the market, the kernel that is outside, when it goes to the markets that we're exporting, is more expensive than the nut that is inside. Therefore, the market requires the kernel because it is used in food processing. The kernel produces very nice something called activated charcoal.
Okay.
So the prices of unprocessed macadamia for export is higher than our processors buying from the farmer. Okay. So we have to look at the value chain. So now we look at ourselves and say, do we have the industry that is competitive to be able to process macadamia, the nut itself, and the kernel, to a point whereby the kernel, which is used, which is a byproduct and used in the industry, and be able to export to that market. One is that we are not competitive in terms of processing the kernel. So therefore now what happens if government bans export of unprocessed, the prices for the farmer goes down. It used to be 150 shillings. Right now I think it has come as down as, last year I was checking, it was 30 shillings. Of course it was post-COVID because nuts are used mainly in the hospitality industry. So it came down almost 5 times. So we have to balance and see when we ban, what is happening? What does the market require? So it's not only the nut, it is also the kernel. So that is how I analyzed. And how I know is that for the first time as Kenya National Chambers of Commerce, we've established international offices. I did an office in China, which is one of the largest destinations of unprocessed macadamia. And that is how I came to know that actually what is more expensive is
unprocessed.
Is the processed one.
Is unprocessed.
It's the unprocessed.
Yes, and that's what the market demands. So you have to balance. Do you create jobs for the farmer and good and money to the pocket of the farmer, or do you want to create jobs now for the processor? And you have to balance the two.
Speaks to something larger. I think when we get back from the break, we'll definitely talk about the policy shifts that we've seen over the last year, how haphazard they have been and how they've affected. Because when you say at the end of the day, the unprocessed macadamia fetches more for the farmer than if they sell to a processor, then someone who was effecting this ban should have seen that coming, should have done their research and known exactly what that means, right? So we'll talk about the haphazardness, whether it's financial policy, whether it's things like this. But we'll be right back after this break. If you have any questions, of course, for Dr. Ruto, hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV, or call us on 0719 058. Let me make sure I have the number correctly. 038 858. 0719 038 858. We'll be right back.
We're having a conversation with Dr. Eric Ruto. He's the president of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and this represents the small to medium enterprises and even to large enterprises to an extent across the country, across all the 47 counties. And they did a survey last year. We just combined the sentiment of the businesses, private sector operating in Kenya on various issues, on how they have faced the business environment, how they think about the sentiment going forward into this financial year. Do they expect their businesses to grow? Do they expect their revenues to grow? Do they expect to hire more people? Do they expect to expand? Do they expect any favorable conditions from the government? And some of them are saying that they expect a rise in primary costs, that is the cost of their inputs, and they largely anticipate slight increases fueled by poor macroeconomic conditions, high taxation, and unfavorable business policies. And that's why I asked you, Dr. Terry, before we went to the break, did you go further into asking them, what exactly do you mean when you say you anticipate high taxation or poor macroeconomic conditions or unfavorable government policies? What is that sentiment? What are they saying?
Okay, thank you very much, Latif. And I would like to contextualize, especially in terms of a stable regulatory environment. Eric, which is the largest private sector company in Kenya?
The largest private sector company in Kenya is Safaricom.
Exactly.
Yes.
Did you see a letter from the CEO of Safaricom last year about the regulatory environment?
Yeah.
Yes. So if the largest company that is owned by government at 60% is having a problem about unpredictable regulatory environment, because Safaricom was writing to the regulator that there's an international company which is coming. They are not paying the license fees that Safaricom paid. And that is the largest company complaining. What will happen to my members who have turnovers of less than 1 million? And maybe move very quickly in terms of that issue of constancy in terms of the regulatory environment. I've got right now my member who is in the manufacturing industry, textile. When there was overcrowding, which of course I will not blame this government, overcrowding of credit, a government borrowing from the private sector. This company had borrowed almost 500 million. So the interest rate went up from 12% to 18%. So if it comes in terms of money, it's around 20 million that you have to pay over and above.
What you had planned for.
Yes. Secondly, is the cost of electricity. And I would give you a contextual example. The same company,
Right.
using the same, calculated in terms of the same consumption. In Uganda, that company would pay 3 million Kenya shillings. The same company with the same consumption would pay 7 million Kenya shillings. So that's a difference of 4 million. Going further, what is your profit after tax? Is almost that. So you see even the cost of electricity alone. And I went further to do more research. Because you see, if you compare ourselves with countries that we are importing finished goods from in terms of cost of electricity, which is very, very significant and very important for us,
Right.
is that we pay 3.2 times higher in terms of cost of electricity. And to put that to figures is, I think, in Kenya, in terms of USN, 0.256. From the countries that we are importing from, the top three, it's around 0.078 to around 0.8. So around 3.2 times in terms only of cost of electricity. So that is what we need to have a conversation as a country. Because one is that the jobs that we have, that naturally God has given us through the sun, through soil, and the rain, and government are over. We have to be creative. If we do not address, first of all, the environment, which is stable, regulated environment, that even the largest company with the muscle it has to complain, and even the cost of production. However, many finance bills that we're going to pass is not going, we are not going to go to any extra step. So, and that speaks into the barometer here. In the industry, our members of the chamber, approximately 40%, in terms of the capacity to process, to produce, 40% of that are saying 50% of their capacity is lying idle. So therefore, what I would like government to focus very much on is, before we look for the international investor, and even as Chamber of Commerce, we have quite a number of network international, even to bring investors. Can we address this 50% idle space in our factories?
Please
there
explain
are
this.
issues about the cost of credit, which I've mentioned by contextualizing one member in the textile industry. The second one is unfavorable and high taxation, and it has to be predictable. Take, for instance, I was a company that invested, and I would say that the average salary in Kenya is between, I think, the minimum is 16,000, 17,000 currently. To maybe, so the average is between 15 to maybe 40,000. Now, those staff are coming to me right now because of the issue of the pay slip. We have had the housing levy, we have had SHA and the savings. By the way, I don't have a problem with that as a business person. But how does that money move after you have deducted from the salaries is the most important question that we have to ask. You see, what is happening is there's a normal adage that capital is not efficient in government hands. So this was capital that was available for the private sector.
Right.
You're getting?
So
the environment has to be predictable. And is it the right time? I would give it as an analogy. Just think, for instance, that there's famine and there's drought. You don't have water in your house and you don't have food. Would you save any food for tomorrow? You eat what is there. You're getting? So this is not the time. When our economy there is economic recession. And it is global, it's not a problem for Kenya. And I think we have to think a little bit with the policies of government, that we have to, first of all, have we have to have an economic stimulus for the economy. So I would say that is what we would want to see as a private sector. And as the president of Kenya National Chambers of Commerce, these are the statistics that are coming out across the country. 1,981 businesses. And if you can go and look at the survey that was done by Central Bank, it's almost the same number and distribution.
Same
in terms
findings.
Of, yes, not same findings, but distribution.
Okay.
And I think there was actually a survey of CEOs by Central Bank, which was released recently. I think maybe you can ask your people to go to the archives and check. Yes. So the picture there, we know what is happening.
It's a similar picture.
The prescription is not right. So we have to sit down as a country and love our country and prescribe the proper medicine. for this country.
What does that medicine look like in a finance bill that's coming in a few months? We're in budget season.
Yes. Maybe what we would want to see is that I know in terms of the policy statement from the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, Honorable Mbadi, who is a great friend of the private sector. I have met him when he came to the office. He's got fantastic ideas on how to be able to change the economy of this country. He's been the chair for PIC, so I think he's got a lot of experience. So the first thing in their statement is that they've said that they want to reduce the cost of doing business, the cost of living, create jobs, and have a balanced budget. So a balanced budget means that they are not going to over budget. So I think government has to tighten its shoes in terms of its spending so that they don't have to borrow and overcrowd the private sector in terms of credit. Because that is the number one problem when I go around the country. In the last 2 weeks, I've visited almost 10 counties. And I visit small businesses across our counties. They've got fantastic products. They've got fantastic factories. But the main problem they have is that issue of cost of credit. Of course, now cost of doing business is something. So what we want to see is we want a very predictable. The government should come up with a policy of the next 5 years. Because as an investor, I will only invest when I know that in the next 5 years,
Right.
by law, that things are not going to change. In terms even of raw materials that we're importing, government is introducing, I think there is a levy about what we use after manufacturing in terms of packaging.
Yeah.
So it's a serious issue that's happening. And sometimes, and from where I come, in the healthcare sector, what we use to package the medicine is very important. Sometimes it's more expensive than even the medicine. So if we're talking about universal health care, we should be able to look at what is the total cost. And finally, let me give you an example. I did interview one of members who used to be in the wine industry. And we used to produce, we had just started as a country. So what used to happen is that the raw material or the things that we are not producing bottles, we are not producing the corks and the labels. So what happened is that government was taxing if you import the bottles, if you import the corks and the labeling. So what happened is that, and when you import ready produced wine, they only tax what is inside. So in addition to now taxing the content inside, for the imported finished product, they are not taxing the
bottle and the
cork.
And the cork. So it makes ourselves non-competitive. And it's almost happening in each and every sector. I would say in a country like Kenya, for instance, textile, and I'm a little bit I'm uncomfortable because we are wearing 90% of the clothes that we import ready-made. We have manufacturers, we have tailors across the country. So we have to relook at having a constant regulatory environment in all those sectors so that if I'm an investor and a small investor, like for instance, Kiabu, last year, I polled 200 cobblers and 300 tailors. They would like to invest. But are they sure that the shirt that they're going to produce is going to be competitive and we are not going to have our customs porous? And finally, let me mention, as a country, we have to be very serious about what we need to protect our economy. For instance, we cannot get an international manufacturer to go to the last value chain of retailing. You've seen currently, in terms of modern trade and retailing, that international manufacturers are coming to open distribution channels across the country. There is not going to be technology transfer and even capital transfer. And if we do that as a country, finally, we will sell all our jobs. And I want to give you an example, and you take it.
Go ahead.
Because of opening that modern retail value chain, and they're doing a lot of furniture. The guys in Gong Road, the guys in Kariobangi there will close shop. We are seeing that the customer is going to get a cheaper price, but indirectly, we're going to lose jobs.
We're losing jobs.
So there are some sectors that we have to protect our economy for local businesses. And when those businesses, like for instance, those in modern retail value chain, in real estate, when they make their profits, as a country, we have had this story of saying you repatriate 100% of your profits. And I see that in terms of statistics. If you look at the FDIs, inflows and outflows for Kenya.
Right.
In 2021, 2022, the outflows was almost equivalent to inflows, which means people are repatriating their profits.
People are investing the money,
businesses
making the profit and taking the money away.
That should be preserved for the small businesses.
I want to jump in here,
Yes.
Daktari, and just ask the question. Because all these conversations that what you're raising today is not new.
Yes.
We've heard it. As Chamber of Commerce, as a private sector, you've had meetings with not just this administration, with the previous administrations, and you've been saying the same thing over and over again. We, as a manufacturing sector, have capacity, but it's 50% idle.
Yes.
We'd like to be supported so that then we can ramp this up, we'll employ more people, we will be able to export, we will earn foreign exchange, we will grow our economy. We, as farmers, we have these capacities, we'd like to be supported. You have these conversations all the time on roundtables with the presidents, with the officials from the National Treasury. Where does it end? How come it does not find itself at the implementation table? What's the missing link here?
Eric Latif, I would say I think there's a little bit of missing link and in sync with what is happening in the economy. You know, we've been independent for 60 years. I totally agree. We have had conversations at the highest level, at the ministry, with the cabinet secretary, Minister of Treasury. Even we have, in my tenure, I've had 2 presidential roundtables. But the problem we have is the issue of government knows. We know what's supposed to be done, but the implementation is a problem. So what I would say is that, and also we have our parliament, the people who make the finance bill. I would say as Kenya, we've not been fair to our leaders, from where I sit. The demands that we have for them. For me, we don't love our country and we don't have our leaders. You see, every nation, I know you've done statistics, every election cycle, 80% of the members of parliament don't come back.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they don't deserve to come back.
No. It is us who make them not to come back.
Yeah, we vote them out.
What is expectation of a common mwananchi to a politician? You must come, give me a job. You must come, do fundraising for churches. You're getting? You don't ask yourself that for you to be able to go and listen to a politician, they have to bribe you. You're getting? So from where I sit, is that these guys is like holding something in the hand. Are you alive or not alive?
I'd like to
So what is
challenge
happening
that.
for the politician? From where I sit.
I don't think the expectation is that,
that
you'll come give me a bribe or you'll give me a job. I think the first expectation is you'll create an environment that allows me to work and play and live a good life. When that isn't met, then comes you've come and you're speaking to me and you're saying the same thing you were saying 3 years ago. At least give me something. I think the first expectation of a voter is service delivery, provision, etc., all the work that we think of from our legislature.
I want you to do polling of the 20% who come back and see the kind of the activities they have in the constituency. You know,
the 20% who?
The ones who come
Those
back.
who get re-elected.
Yes. Can you look at what they do in the constituency?
Okay.
You're getting? And see whether it is a real work as per our constitution of our legislature and our
I'm sorry, Dr. Ruto, but are you saying that when you have the presidential roundtable, the people who sit in that are president and his advisors, technocrats. When you have a meeting at the Treasury, it's a cabinet secretary who's a political appointee, and until recently, well, this time we have a politician, but before that we had technocrats, and the PSs were technocrats, and the others who are in the National Treasury. They retreat and they draft the policy, which they take then to Parliament. Are you saying that even the technocrats who are working in government are thinking the same way? I mean, I'm asking, what's the disconnect between when you sit at that roundtable and you present this case,
right,
and these technocrats are listening to the case? Why don't we see that on policy paper being presented? And let's argue that they took a strong policy proposal to the politicians in Parliament, and the politicians just didn't get it. Or they looked at, this is not what our people expect, and they changed it.
Yes, I would say their commitment during those discussions, you cannot doubt, is 100%. I don't know what happens in between those dialogues and the Treasury and even our Parliament. If you go and look at our 2024-2025 financial bill, we presented our memorandum as Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry. And what we presented, I'm happy to report, is that out of the 22 issues that Parliament changed, that Treasury had done, 7 were coming from Kenya National Chambers of Commerce out of 122 organizations who presented memorandums in Parliament. So we do present. But, you know, the ones which are very key, you're getting. And I would say, like, for instance, you see the finance bill for 2024, 24, and 25 was about the issue of digital tax, was taxing about when you are transferring money, the revenue you're taxing, all those things. Those are things we had presented. And those were things that people had a lot of resistance to, and which was making our economy to be a little bit more expensive. So what I would say is that the issue is the implementation. I don't know what happens along the way. I think the economists look at the whole economy and say, for me to run government, which is recurrent expenditure, which is payment of a debt, by the way, we have a debt crisis, I would say it's not enjoyable currently to be a leader in this country. If you collect 10 shillings, 7 shillings goes to repayment of debt. It's a debt crisis. I don't think radically that if you're given that seat, you'll be comfortable. And expect now, and we do a lot of demands. You expect government comes, please give me a road, give me a new road, give me electricity, give me all this infrastructure. We've done these things for 60 years. Why don't we now focus on the productive economy? I would want, when the president visits your constituency, we know the roads have been developed. It might not be 100%, but please, let's stop these demands for infrastructure development. Let us demand and say, like when I visited a village in Vihiga, there's this young lady. We have a program with MasterCard. We gave her 200,000 Kenya shillings. She was able to hire more for people. Why don't we tell government, instead of you giving us, we have all the weather roads done. Why don't we say, give us affordable credit? Don't borrow a lot from the sector. Yes,
we're removing the government from its core duty, which is to provide these services, which is to provide infrastructure. So there's no reason to pass the buck down to well-wishers, to foundations, etc., when the government is mandated with that work and to provide the business environment that allows people to flourish, that allows all members of KNCCI, you know, to be able to do their work efficiently. I feel like we are excusing the government from their mandate, which is very odd, I would say, from someone who sits in a place where policy really does make a difference. Like you've said, you've given us, you know, several examples of policy affecting members of KNCCI, and then now you're saying, okay, let's take our foot off the gas and you know, give the government some breathing room. And why are we passing the buck when the people who can make the changes,
we have employed them
have
to
the
provide
opportunity
solutions,
to do so? Yeah.
Yes.
to lead
In a realistic economic environment. You see our budget is 4.2 trillion. I think we are supposed to pay, is it 1 trillion every year? Of what we collect is around 2.6, I think 2.7 trillion. So what is this? Where do you demand those kind of new capital projects? Where do you expect government to get money? And you see, if I was a politician and I come to the ground and you tell me I need a road, I need electricity, you're getting?
Yep.
Yes, we know it's an enabler. But even if you are building your own house, you're getting? There are things you have to forego to save for the future and to produce for the future. So from where I sit,
we could forego corruption.
We demand.
We could forego corruption, government expenditure, travel.
Yes, those things.
Yeah,
those things.
Why do you have to forego critical infrastructure?
What I would say is that this subject of corruption has been there for very long. And by the way, this corrupt money, when these guys take money, where does it go? It goes into the economy, but we are not seeing it in the economy.
Or into offshore accounts, into immovable assets, etc. Yeah, it doesn't always go into the economy.
Maybe what does corruption in terms of of course the perception by itself will damage the economy. But I would say we are over focusing so much on that, and maybe a little bit of the media. If you look, and I started by saying that you look at our social media handles. If you, for instance, do an experiment and do a pilot for the next 6 months, like today, Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry has got a new market for Kenyan products in Zambia. We're talking about SCFTA. You're getting? If you make that one to be the headline news, you're getting?
Yeah.
By the way, let me tell you, and most of the Kenyans, they would rarely watch your first 10 minutes of the news. You're getting? So what I would say is that, can we change the other way around? Can we focus on the economy? Can we focus on what is happening right? You're getting? So that these guys you are talking about even taking money offshore, can say we are confident to invest in this country. Yes.
We would love to focus on what is going right with the economy. If there were things going right with the economy, I think it's dismissive to focus on what's going right. And I think we do give credit where it's due.
Yes.
But when there's so many glaring gaps, as we have covered just over this last hour, and there's policy problems, and you have the duty bearers who can change those things, if we take that mantle away from them and give it back to the people, you can't elect a person, give them the work to do, and then decide to do the work yourself because you want to, give them a day off. I don't get where that is coming from.
In terms of content for the economy, in terms of content and headline news, I'll tell you there's quite a lot. Just visit even our pages.
But
I'll give you one example.
We used your business barometer.
Yes,
but, give us an example.
I'll give you one example.
Okay.
There's a young man in Narok. He's in the poultry business. His cost of production of one egg is 8.7. He's employed quite a number of people. He's doing almost 100,000 eggs per day. You're getting? So that is good news because he's trying to address the issue of food security in this country. An egg from Uganda, and we must trade with our neighbors. I get surprised that an egg from Uganda can wholesale at 10 shillings in Nairobi here. While that young man who is producing 100,000 eggs cannot wholesale that price at 10 shillings, is going to go at a loss. The minimum he has to is at 11 shillings. So we have to look at now, you have to make that headline news. That why is it that the cost of production of an egg in Kenya is higher than cost of production of an egg in Uganda? And Narok is an agricultural, is getting most of the raw material from that environment. So it is these other factors of cost of production, the labor cost, unpredictable environment, the cost of electricity, the cost of fuel,
Exactly.
By the way,
so the ordinary Kenyan is working very hard.
Extremely hard.
The ordinary Kenyan is optimistic. The ordinary Kenyan is looking forward to, just investing their sweat, their energy, their blood, their money, their everything for a better Kenya. Okay?
Yes.
They are let down by those that they have employed to sort out the policy issues and the regulation issues. And that's why we are saying. So if the ordinary Kenyan is already optimistic, you can't tell the ordinary Kenyan, look, be positive, love your country. That's why people don't sleep, Dr. Ruto. That's why people wake up very early in the morning to go and eke out a living. They love their country, they love themselves, they love their families. That's what they're doing, right? But then they expect that I have hired somebody to go and create a policy that makes this thing easier for me, that I have access to my market for my produce, whether it's livestock, whether it's chicken, I have access to market, and it's going to be affordable enough for it to give me a good return. Then I can expand, I can grow, I can flourish. The missing link and what we need to fix is now what I was asking you. How do we fix this link between all these things that you've presented, the barometer and your meetings with the Treasury and your proposals, to making them make sense so that then they become the reality? How do we fix it? In a sentence or a statement?
From where I sit, I think we should stop referring ourselves as ordinary mwananchi. I think the person who is the ordinary mwananchi are the leaders that we put in power. The moment we start first conceptualizing and having that as a population, and then asking the right questions and demanding for the right policy and the right answers.
Okay, so you're already doing that.
From where I sit is that the population is demanding for now. And let me tell you, it's not, you see, we've changed all these.
No, don't get my question wrong.
Yes,
I want to
we've changed,
here.
Yes. It's not.
Don't get my question wrong.
Yes.
You have the barometer.
Yes.
You have memoranda.
Yes.
You have proposals.
Yes.
For this year's budget.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that at least all the proposals that come are considered and those that are good are taken, so that we see an improvement? This barometer is showing a lack of confidence across the board for all your members.
Yes.
How do we make sure that what their sentiment is taken into account and improved?
I think we have to make the noise a little bit increase the volume. And how do we do that? I started by saying that we have 50,000 companies who are members of Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry.
Yeah.
But how many SMEs do we have in the country? 7.4 million. We need to do an orchestra whereby we are presenting to government music that they can hear in terms of what direction we want to do. So one of the things is that these organizations, business membership organizations, is one of the things is that we have to put government in check.
Okay.
And we have to tell government the right policies that we need to do.
Okay.
Yes, I do it on behalf of 50,000 companies. It's the largest voice of the private sector. But I would like these other 7.2, because if I walk today to NMG and I say, I have 7.2 million who are my members and who have given me their proposals. And today I tell government, if you don't do this, we are not going to re-elect you. They're going to listen. Just like what happened, you know, the revolution that is happening in the world. Why was Donald Trump elected? The business community said enough is enough, and they went for it. So we need the business community to come up, be united, become members of Kenya National Chambers of Commerce, become members of your sectoral business membership organizations. And therefore, now we can be able to present to Parliament. Sometimes, some of those members of Parliament, they are even pains. They say, can you bring us information? You're getting? So we need this kind of united and strong voice of the private sector.
Okay.
Yes, we've left this thing. Every 5 years, we discuss economics. By the way, there's something that, I don't know, this government, for it to win, is that they had economic agreements with 47 chapters, 47 counties.
Yep.
If they were to go back to that, I looked at it, it was proper. That is where, that is what we need to be acted by government. So what I would say is that we have the information out there. We know what we are supposed to do it. Let us just follow it to the letter. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Dr. Eric Ruto is the president of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he says this is the oldest and largest representation of the private sector in Kenya, present across all the 47 counties with over 50,000 members, and representing across the board from those that have revenues of about $1 million a year to as high as
over $1 billion.
Over $1 billion.
Yes.
So it's from the small business to the large businesses all represented, and saying, let's all come together, let's all be active, and let's all be engaged. Time for that break as we say goodbye to Dr. Ruto, and then we come back and we say, miss me with that. Let's have the conversation among ourselves, shall we? Among all of us as a community of fixers, online, on phone. We'll open the phone lines as well. 7 minutes after 9.